What is an American? By Harold Ickes. Harold Ickes was born in Township, Pennsylvania in 1879. Ickes went to the University of Chicago, where he attended law school. After law school, he served as a Republican committeeman and headed a committee of liberal Republicans who supported FDR. Ickes was appointed as Secretary of the Interior in 1933. While he served this role and during World War II, Ickes was in charge of fuel resources in the U.S. and was a vocal critic of the World War II internment of Japanese Americans. Ickes made his speech, "What is an American?" when Adolf Hitler and the Nazis seemed to be heading towards world domination. Ickes' speech was meant to convince Americans that being active in World War II was a smart idea. It also reminded America of what it truly meant to be free. In What is an American?, Harold Ickes starts by asking Americans some questions. He is asking where the fighting and believing Americans have gone. He continues by saying that they have listened to the negative voices around them saying, "There is no room for free men in the world anymore." Ickes wants Americans to claim its voice again and stand up for itself, especially in the time of war it is in. They need to come together with their allies and realize that all Americans are meant to be seen as one. They are not to be separated by race, class, or religion, rather brought together as one American family because they are meant to believe in justice and dignity of a man. Subject. The subject is that the American people need to once again rise up and no longer be scared to fight. They have to come together with their allies in order to defeat the Germans and save their own freedoms. An example in the text showing that Ickes believes that Americans need to come together with their allies is when he says, "Do you know why? Because we cannot live in the world alone, without friends and without allies. If Britain should be defeated, then the totalitarian undertaker will prepare to hang crepe on the door of our own independence." Occasion, May 18, 1941, at I'm an American Day in New York City's Central Park. Audience, the American people. Purpose. The purpose of the speech is to encourage the Americans during a time when their morale was failing and to unite them once again. He wanted to remind America what it meant to be free. Examples include, "I say that it is time for the great American people to raise his voice and cry out in a mighty triumph what it is to be an American. Is that many of us are listening to them, and some of us almost believe them. Freedom-loving men and women in every land must organize and tighten their ranks. The masses everywhere must be helped to fight their oppressors and conquerors." Speaker, Harold Ickes. Tone, motivational and hopeful. Some strong tone words and phrases Ickes uses include freedom-loving, liberty never dies, and joyously. Diction. Harold Ickes uses specific words and phrases that show how greatly Americans have been beaten down. He does this to show how little Americans have begun to value themselves and to encourage them to prevail as a great nation once again. The strong diction he uses is shown in the following quotes. "We have been told that we are beaten, decayed, and no longer part of the world belongs to us any longer. Some amongst us have begun to preach that the wave of the future has passed over us and left us wet, dead fish. Cruelty, injustice, and slavery." Imagery. He uses imagery to appeal to the Americans' emotions, and it allows the speech to sound less political. At one point in the speech, he uses the imagery of a tree in the wintertime. "It will endure like a hardy tree gone into the wintertime, awaiting the spring." Details. Statements about World War II and the countries involved are a major component of the speech. The following quotes show how Ickes strongly relies on details of the war in order to sound convincing to the American people. "Today in Europe, the Nazi Attila may gloat that he has destroyed democracy. He is wrong. In the small farmhouses all over Central Europe, in the shops of Germany and Italy, on the docks of Holland and Belgium, freedom still lives in the hearts of men. Under our free institutions, we will work for the good of mankind, including Hitler's victims in Germany, so that all may have plenty and security." Pathos. He uses pathos to appeal to the audience's vengeful side. He wants the audience to realize that aiding the British is the right thing to do. He says, "I mean a future, not of concentration camps, not of physical torture and mental straitjackets. I mean a future when free men will live free lives in dignity and in security." In this quote, Ickes is describing violent war areas such as concentration camps and physical torture. This would surely allow Americans to see how aiding in the end to a war would be positive. He also talks about heritage, saying, "It is ours if we show ourselves worthy of our culture and our heritage." Logos. Ickes uses logos to show the American people that direct involvement in the war is logical. Do you know why? Because we cannot live in a world alone, without friends and without allies. If Britain should be defeated, then the totalitarian undertaker will prepare to hang crepe on the door of our own independence. In saying this quote, Ickes makes it clear that if Americans do not help others in the time of war, America will be defeated next. Ethos. Ix establishes ethos and its credibility by saying facts about America. They cry that we free Americans, nourished on the Magna Carta and the Declaration of Independence. Here he discusses official American documents. Rhetorical strategies. Ix uses an allusion by alluding back to both the works of Winston Churchill and Hitler. He does this to sound more credible and to prove his earlier points. He also used the metaphor by comparing Americans to something dead, in this case a dead fish. He uses a hyperbole by exaggerating the statement that the U.S. is going to donate everything it owns to another country in need. Throughout the speech, Harold Ix is consistent with his rhetorical questions. He opens the speech asking Americans where their morale has gone. He does this so they feel guilty about their cowardly actions. The last rhetorical strategy Ix uses is simile. In this simile, Ix compares the freedom in men's hearts to a strong tree that will prevail. This gives Americans hope and assures them that if they stand up for what is right, freedom will prevail.